Let tonight be a gentle drift into calm curiosity, as you settle in with the quiet crackle of a campfire and the slow rhythm of a sleepy ocean, letting your mind soften while I guide you into the peaceful world of sailors in the 1800s. Before we sail too far, may I ask, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it there? Take a moment to share your answer. And before we continue, if you enjoy calm history like this, feel free to press the like button, subscribe, and leave a gentle comment. It truly helps this small channel grow. Imagine a wooden ship easing into the end of a long day. The air cools, the light softens, and the last footsteps fade across the deck. This is where our story begins, in that quiet moment when the world feels slower and the mind begins to unwind. As the sun slips below the horizon, the ship's warm colors fade into muted blues and grays. Sailors finish their final tasks, tying ropes, checking knots, and wiping sweat from their foreheads. The day's noise dissolves, replaced by the soft hush of evening. You may notice your own breathing settling, matching the slowing rhythm of the ship. A gentle reminder, in case your mind drifts, you're safe here, listening to a calm story meant to help you rest. Most sailors paused at the railings before heading below deck. They took in the sea's vastness, watching the water darken under the fading light. The air carried a cool, salty touch that felt comforting after hours of hard labor. It was a moment of simple peace, an exhale shared between human and ocean. Now the ship grows even quieter. The wooden boards creak softly beneath gentle waves, almost like the vessel is relaxing with the crew. Without engines or machinery, this quiet felt deeper, just the natural sounds of wood, wind, and water guiding the night forward. Some sailors lingered at the bow, letting the breeze cool their tired faces. They gazed ahead, though nothing but open water awaited them. Yet that emptiness was calming. At night, the sea didn't feel threatening. It felt endless in a soft, reassuring way. A small reminder, in case your thoughts wander again, you can let your shoulders drop a little more. Let the story hold you like a warm blanket. As the evening settled fully, the sky overhead slowly revealed itself. Stars emerged one by one, shimmering faintly in the night air. Sailors often paused to take in the view, not with awe or wonder, but with the quiet appreciation of people who had grown familiar with the sky's slow nightly routine. The dim lanterns on deck cast a gentle glow across the planks. Their warm circles of light swayed slightly with the ship's rocking, creating slow-moving shadows that drifted like silent companions across the deck. The gentle sway might remind you of the relaxing back-and-forth motion that makes eyelids grow heavier. With the day's duties over, sailors spoke in calmer tones. Their conversations faded into low murmurs, blending naturally with the quiet sea. Even laughter became softer at night, not out of strictness, but because the stillness of evening invited gentleness from everyone on board. A little anchor to the present moment. Notice how your breath rises and falls, just like the ship's slow rocking in our story. Below deck, hammocks were being prepared. Sailors adjusted knots, smoothed fabric, and made small spaces feel just a bit more welcoming. These rituals were comforting, predictable, and steady, much like preparing one's own bed after a long day. But before rest, many sailors chose to stay outside for a few more minutes. The night air cooled them, calming muscles that had worked since early morning. Standing alone or in small groups, they allowed the quiet to settle deep into their bones. The ship continued drifting forward, but its movement felt gentler now. There was no rush for speed, no urgency, just the steady push of wind against sails, guiding the vessel through the calm night. This slow motion helped everyone transition from work to rest. Once more, in case your mind tugs at loose threads of thought, you can let them go. The night, the sea, and the story will carry you softly. And as the first true darkness of night wrapped around the ship, every sound seemed to soften even more. Footsteps slowed, voices lowered, and the ship entered that peaceful transition into night where everything felt steady, predictable, and safe. As the deeper hours of evening took over, the quiet around the ship felt almost like a soft blanket settling across the deck. The ocean's rhythm became more noticeable, a slow, measured pulse that seemed to soothe even the most restless minds. Sailors often found themselves breathing in sync with it, letting the movement loosen the last bits of tension in their shoulders. Some sailors leaned against the mast or the side rail just to take in the stillness. They didn't need to say anything. The gentle wind brushing past them, the hush of waves meeting wood, and the creaking of ropes overhead created a kind of natural lullaby. You might feel a hint of that calming effect now, as if the quiet of the ship is reaching you through the story. Even in peaceful hours, a few men were still on watch. Their steps were soft, deliberate, steady. They scanned the horizon not to expect danger, but simply because it was part of the nightly routine. Their presence offered reassurance, not only to the crew, but to themselves. This was the calm part of duty, where the ship's safety felt like a shared responsibility carried with gentle awareness. A little reminder, in case your attention has floated away, it's okay to drift. This story is here to guide you back whenever you need. For many sailors, the night brought a rare sense of privacy. With so much of life spent shoulder to shoulder, the quiet hours let them finally hear their own thoughts. Some sat with their backs against a coil of rope, staring at the faint shimmer of moonlight on the water. Others simply closed their eyes, letting the fresh sea air cool their eyelids before heading below deck. Inside the ship, the hum of daily life had faded. The lanterns cast warm pools of light along the wooden walls, stretching soft shadows across the narrow walkways. The scent of salt, worn ropes, and wood lingered faintly in the air. It wasn't luxurious by any means, but it was familiar, comforting in the way that routine brings steady peace. As hammocks began to sway with bodies settling into them, the room filled with a subtle symphony of quiet breathing. The motion of the ship lifted and lowered each hammock in a smooth, rhythmic pattern. Many sailors felt sleep come faster at sea than on land, the gentle rocking acting like a natural cradle easing them into rest. Another small anchor for you. If you notice your eyelids growing heavier, you can let them. This slow story is meant to carry you without effort. Above deck, the night sky continued to deepen. Stars shimmered with soft brightness, reflected in streaks across the surface of the water. Some sailors cherished this view more than any other part of their day. It wasn't dramatic or overwhelming, just a peaceful reminder of how wide the world could feel, even in silence. Occasionally, a soft breeze would set the sails fluttering, creating a whisper-like sound that drifted across the deck. The ship responded with a gentle sway, adjusting itself to the changes in wind. These motions were subtle but familiar, shaping the sense that the vessel was working with the sea rather than fighting against it. Far from the busyness of daylight hours, the ship felt like a floating sanctuary of calm. Conversations had faded, the work was done, and even the ocean seemed to quiet its voice out of respect for the stillness. It was in moments like these that sailors felt closest to peace, not through noise or excitement, but through the steady companionship of the night. Let this be another gentle reminder. You're welcome to sink deeper into comfort as you listen. There is no rush, no pressure, no expectation. A few sailors would stay awake just a little longer, sitting with their thoughts or watching faint shapes move in the water beside the ship. These small nighttime rituals weren't dramatic, but they meant something. They brought a sense of grounding, a moment to feel human and present after a long day of labor. And as the final lamps were dimmed and the last footsteps retreated below deck, the ship entered its truest quiet. Only the ocean remained awake, carrying the vessel forward with unhurried patience. The night wrapped itself around the ship like a calm embrace, leaving sailors to drift into sleep in their gently swaying hammocks, while the sea guided them through the darkness. The ship eased into night with a soft hush, and the first lanterns were lit along the deck. Their warm, gentle glow pushed back the darkness just enough to create a sense of safety, not brightness. The flame inside each lantern flickered with the movement of the sea, casting ripples of light that danced softly across wooden planks. It was a peaceful contrast to the glare of daylight. The lanterns didn't illuminate everything. Instead, they allowed shadows to settle comfortably in corners, giving the ship a slow, dreamy atmosphere that encouraged rest. Lantern light had a calming presence that sailors grew attached to during long voyages. These small circles of warmth made the ship feel more like a floating village than an isolated vessel in the vast ocean. The wooden beams above glowed faintly, and the brass fittings on the lanterns reflected soft, muted highlights. The gentle sway of the lamp frames created a slow-moving pattern, like a soothing rhythm guiding weary minds into quiet. Many sailors found themselves slowing their movements, speaking in hushed tones, as if the lanterns themselves invited peace. As night deepened, the lantern's glow settled into a steady pulse, swaying with the motion of the waves. The deck, once lively with footsteps and work, became a corridor of warm pockets of light where sailors lingered briefly before heading below. These lantern-lit spots offered small refuges, a moment to rub tired hands, adjust worn clothing, or simply breathe in the evening air. The shadows stretched softly behind every object, not sharp or threatening, but gentle and rounded, shaped by the subtle flame inside each lantern. Below deck, lanterns hanging from wooden beams illuminated the narrow pathways with an intimate, amber glow. Their light softened the rough edges of rope coils, tool chests, and storage barrels, giving the cramped interior a sense of warmth despite its simplicity. Sailors accustomed to the sea's unpredictability found comfort in this consistent, predictable lighting. Even the scent of warm oil from the lanterns mixed with the wooden fragrance of the ship, creating an atmosphere that felt steady and familiar after long hours of labor. A lantern's flame also played a quiet role in guiding sailors through their nightly routines. Its soft glow revealed the edges of hammocks, the contours of clothing folded for the next day, and the faint details of maps or journals resting on small shelves. Though the light was never strong, it was enough to keep the night from feeling empty. The flame's slow flicker felt like a steady companion, matching the ship's gentle movements and the crew's slowing breaths as fatigue settled in. Up on deck, the lanterns created a subtle path along the railings. The reflections on polished metal fixtures shimmered gently, like small glints of captured starlight. Sailors walking their night rounds felt guided by these soft, golden markers. Each step revealed another patch of mellow light, another calm pocket of visibility that made the dark ocean around them feel less immense. In these quiet hours, lantern light wasn't just practical. It shaped the emotional landscape of the ship. Even when the wind picked up slightly, the lanterns remained steady inside their protective glass. Their stability gave sailors a sense of reassurance. As long as the lanterns glowed, the night felt manageable and familiar. The warmth of their color contrasted beautifully with the cool tones of the sky and sea, creating a tranquil balance that made nighttime tasks feel slower and less demanding. The flame inside each lantern danced gently, creating patterns of light that moved like soft waves across the deck. This motion had a hypnotic quality. Sailors often paused for a few seconds just to watch the flicker, an unspoken ritual that eased the mind after the intensity of daytime work. Standing near a lantern felt like standing near a calm, steady heartbeat within the ship. Some sailors took a quiet moment beside a lantern to clean tools, mend clothing, or write short notes in their journals. The concentrated pool of light made small tasks possible, while the darkness surrounding the glow made everything beyond feel distant and still. These were brief moments of solitude, simple, grounding pauses that helped sailors transition from the day's demands into the night's pace. In the lower deck, groups of sailors often settled near a lantern to share quiet conversations. The soft light made faces seem gentler, features softened by shadow and warmth. Their voices stayed low, shaped by the environment rather than any rule. The lanterns seemed to encourage slow speaking, slow breathing, and slower thoughts, an environment where exhaustion could finally melt into calm. Lanterns also created a sense of time passing, though subtly. As the night continued, the flames would shift slightly, and their glow would dim or brighten depending on wind and movement. These changing lights became a background rhythm, marking the slow, gentle progression of evening aboard the vessel. It allowed the crew to feel the flow of the night without clocks or bells. Even the reflections of lanterns on the polished wood of the deck added to the night's softness. The glowing shapes stretched out like warm puddles of gold, moving with each gentle tilt of the ship. Walking across these reflections made sailors feel as if they were stepping through ripples of light, adding a dreamlike quality to the quiet hours. When a lantern flickered more actively, it sent small waves of brightness across nearby surfaces. This movement often caught a sailor's eye, offering a comforting reminder that the ship was alive with subtle motion. It invited the mind to slow down, to focus on simple details rather than distant worries. The lantern light made the ship feel smaller, in a good way, enclosed, sheltered, and separate from the vast darkness beyond the railings. It transformed the deck into a series of warm, intimate spaces where sailors could exist without urgency. In this carefully lit world, every corner felt touched by calm. As the night continued, sailors found themselves adjusting naturally to the lantern-lit environment. Steps became quieter, conversations shorter, and breaths deeper. The ship moved steadily across the dark water, guided by wind and maintained by routine, while the lanterns kept a soft, steady presence that made the night feel peaceful and safe. The later hours of night brought an even softer shift in the lantern's glow. Flames that once flickered with lively movement now settled into calmer patterns, as if the ship itself had relaxed into the darkness. Sailors moving quietly through the deck felt these changes without needing to look directly at the lamps. The light became warmer, slower, almost drowsy in its rhythm. It invited tired minds to loosen their grip on the day's tasks and breathe in the stillness that stretched across the ship like a calming haze. On the upper deck, the contrast between lantern light and the open night grew more pronounced. The ocean beyond the railings remained a dark expanse, its surface whispering against the hull with steady patience. But within the small pockets of lantern glow, the world felt gentle and contained. Sailors sometimes paused at the edge of the light, letting their eyes adjust before stepping into the cool, moonlit darkness. These small transitions, from warm glow to cool shadow, created a slow, soothing rhythm that guided them through the quiet night. Some sailors found themselves drawn to the lanterns during moments of restlessness. Standing near one, they watched the flame shift inside its glass enclosure, forming small waves of brightness that rolled across the deck. These subtle patterns had a calming effect, helping wandering thoughts settle. The light didn't demand attention. It offered gentle companionship. It created a space where sailors could gather their thoughts or simply let them drift away with the ship's movement. Below deck, the lanterns continued casting their familiar amber tones, shaping the sleeping quarters into a soft landscape of light and shadow. Hammocks swayed gently, each one catching glimmers of gold along its edges as sailors breathed deeply in their sleep. The lanterns didn't brighten the room. It wasn't their purpose. Instead, they softened it, turning harsh corners into rounded shapes and giving the cramped interior a sense of quiet comfort that made drifting into rest feel effortless. The lanterns also played a practical role during late-night watches, guiding sailors through tight corridors and narrow steps. Their steady glow illuminated worn planks and metal fittings without overwhelming the senses. In this low light, every movement felt deliberate and calm. Even routine tasks took on a slower, more thoughtful quality. Moving through the ship by lantern glow encouraged patience, allowing sailors to match their pace with the soothing cadence of the night. As the ship moved steadily across the open sea, the lanterns swayed in harmony with the waves. Their movement was subtle but constant, creating shifting rings of light that spread across the deck. These shifting shapes reminded sailors of the ship's gentle partnership with the ocean, a relationship built on balance and trust. The lanterns gave form to this connection, translating the sea's motion into patterns of light that drifted quietly through the night. In the quietest hours, when most of the crew slept, the lanterns remained as the ship's quiet guardians. Their glow wrapped softly around tools, ropes, and wooden beams, giving the vessel a sense of calm watchfulness. The night didn't feel lonely or empty. It felt settled. The lanterns stood as small beacons of steadiness, showing that even in the vast darkness of the sea, there was warmth to be found. The lantern light shaped the emotional tone of the ship, softening the minds of everyone aboard. The warm glow eased physical fatigue and invited a sense of inner stillness. Sailors who passed through its reach felt themselves slowing, even if just for a moment, allowing the calm to soak in before continuing their tasks or heading to rest. Above deck, the combination of lantern glow and moonlight created a delicate interplay of color and shadow. The cool silver of the sky mingled with the warm amber below, forming a balanced palette that felt peaceful to the eyes. Sailors moving through this environment experienced a natural unwinding, as if the visual softness alone could ease the weight of long days and distant responsibilities. During particularly calm nights, The lantern's reflections on the water were visible from the railings, small trails of gold stretching and rippling with the waves. These mirrored lights moved like floating ribbons beneath the ship, echoing the lantern's gentle flicker above. Observing them was a quiet comfort, a reminder that the ship carried warmth even as it traveled through the vast coolness of the night sea. In rare moments of stillness, when the wind softened and the waves grew slower, lanterns cast a more stable glow, creating an almost dreamlike atmosphere aboard the ship. The crew felt suspended between ocean and sky, wrapped in the soft embrace of light and darkness. These were the moments sailors remembered most, the quiet nights when time itself felt slower, stretched gently across the water. As dawn approached, the lantern's glow began to fade in comparison to the faint light creeping over the horizon. Their warm presence slowly blended with the cool tones of early morning. Though their task for the night was complete, the comfort they offered lingered in the minds of the crew. The lanterns had been companions through the dark hours, guiding, soothing, and offering gentle stability aboard the drifting ship. The final moments before sunrise carried the last traces of lantern light, flickering softly before being extinguished. Sailors preparing for the new day felt a quiet appreciation for the warmth that had carried them through the night. The lantern's glow had shaped the ship's atmosphere, turning the long, uncertain darkness into something gentle, something manageable. And as the crew readied themselves for a new cycle of labor and weather, the memory of that peaceful glow remained, reminding them of the calm held within even the darkest nights at sea. The ship settled deeper into the night as the first watch rotation quietly took their places on deck. The atmosphere felt calmer than earlier hours, shaped by the soft rhythm of the sea brushing against the hull. These nighttime routines were steady and familiar, carried out with slow movements and quiet breaths. Sailors stepped into their duties not with urgency, but with a patient sense of responsibility that matched the gentle mood of the ship after dark. Night watch began with a soft survey of the horizon, where the faint line of sky met the quiet sea. Though visibility was low, sailors relied mostly on their sense of listening, hearing changes in wind, shifts in the sails, or slight variations in the sound of the waves. These cues guided them more than sight. The calmness of the ocean at night allowed small details to stand out, helping them stay aware without tension. Each sailor on watch had a designated area to observe. Some paced slowly near the bow, glancing toward the open waters ahead. Others remained near the mast or the railings, keeping an eye on nearby ropes and equipment. This gentle distribution of roles created a soft, unbroken cycle of movement across the deck. No one rushed. Their steps were quiet, steady, and perfectly in tune with the night. For many sailors, the rhythm of walking back and forth during night watch offered a sense of grounding. The familiar path beneath their feet, the cool breeze against their skin, and the predictable sway of the ship gave their tired minds a moment of stability. Even after a hard day of work, these movements had a calming effect, like a slow ritual that helped them unwind. Lanterns positioned at intervals along the deck cast warm circles of light that helped guide the night watch. Sailors often passed briefly through these glowing patches before returning to darker stretches. This gentle shift between light and shadow created a soothing rhythm. It allowed the watch duties to feel less like a task and more like a quiet journey through the calmness of the ship. The sound of gently flapping sails blended with the creaking of wooden beams above. These noises weren't loud or disruptive. They were a natural part of the nighttime environment. Sailors learned to read these sounds, understanding when the ship was moving smoothly or when the wind shifted slightly. Their attention remained consistent, but their bodies stayed relaxed, letting the natural ambience guide their focus. Night watch also meant checking on ropes and knots that had been tied earlier in the day. Sailors would run their hands along coarse lines, feeling for any looseness or strain. The simple tactile act helped them stay connected to the ship's movement, reminding them of the vessel's relationship with the wind and water. These inspections were quiet and careful, requiring patience rather than strength. Sometimes the moon peered through clouds, casting a cool glow across the deck that softened everything it touched. Sailors appreciated these moments of extra light, not for visibility alone, but for the serenity it brought. Moonlit nights made the sea shimmer with soft silver reflections, giving the watchkeepers a peaceful view as they continued their slow rounds. During darker nights, sailors relied more heavily on sound and touch. They listened to the shift of waves and kept track of subtle vibrations through the deck. Their familiarity with the ship's patterns allowed them to sense when something changed. Despite the limited visibility, they felt secure. The routines practiced night after night created confidence that remained steady even in deep darkness. Occasionally, a sailor would pause briefly at the railing, allowing the cool air to settle on their face. Looking out into the night, they could hear the water lapping softly against the hull. These small pauses were not breaks, but natural moments of breath, tiny resets that helped them maintain clarity throughout the watch. The vastness of the ocean felt quieter at night, more peaceful, more accepting. Another sailor might take a moment near the mast, adjusting a rope or inspecting a wooden beam. These movements were slow and deliberate. They didn't disturb the calm atmosphere. Instead, they added to it. Night watch was not about rushing to complete tasks. It was about maintaining balance, awareness, and a gentle rhythm that kept the ship moving safely through the dark. The lantern glow occasionally flickered when a breeze swept across the deck. This small movement of light cast shifting shadows that drifted over the planks. Sailors grew used to these subtle changes, and the movement of the flame often reminded them of how the entire ship responded to the ocean. It was all connected: the sea, the wind, the wood, the ropes, and they moved together as one. Some sailors hummed quietly to themselves while on watch. The low, soft sounds blended into the night without disturbing anyone. These simple murmurs kept them alert without breaking the serenity of their surroundings. It was a way of staying awake gently, without forcing the mind into sharp attention. Below deck, the soundscape was different. The quiet breaths of sleeping sailors mixed with the distant echo of footsteps above. Those on watch understood the importance of maintaining the calm for their resting crewmates. Their gentle movements and careful handling of tools ensured the ship remained peaceful through the entire night. On certain nights, the ship passed through areas where the water glowed faintly with natural luminescence. This soft shimmer under the hull created an almost magical atmosphere without invoking anything beyond the natural world. Sailors on watch would observe the glowing trails with quiet appreciation, letting the beauty of the sea's behavior soothe their thoughts. A sailor might pause along the starboard side to adjust a loose line or check a block. Even these small tasks had a softness to them during nighttime hours. The lantern light made their hands look slower and more deliberate, reflecting a sense of patience shaped by the calm surroundings. The gentle creaking of the ship's wooden structure reminded sailors that they were not alone in their duties. The vessel itself responded to every wave, every breeze, creating a natural companionship that made night watch feel less solitary. The sounds of the ship were comforting, a steady reminder that it moved with them, not against them. Night watch also gave sailors time to think. Their thoughts often drifted toward home, toward familiar routines, or toward hopes for the next port they would reach. But even these thoughts softened under the quiet atmosphere. The calmness of the sea, paired with the slow rhythm of their steps, helped their minds settle rather than wander. Some nights brought colder winds, encouraging sailors to wrap their jackets more tightly around themselves. The cold did not disturb the peace. It simply made the lantern glow feel warmer. Each breath appeared faintly in the air, blending with the soft movements of light across the deck. As the hours progressed, sailors worked in silent coordination. One finished a round as another began theirs, creating a seamless transition that maintained steady vigilance without abrupt shifts. This smooth handover kept the deck peaceful and ensured that the ship never lacked careful eyes during the night. Sometimes a distant splash from the water broke the silence, perhaps from a fish or a piece of drifting debris. Sailors acknowledged it with calm curiosity, scanning the area briefly before returning to their steady routine. These small moments reminded them of the presence of life in the sea, without disrupting their tranquility. A passing breeze sometimes brought a change in the ship's pace, adjusting the sway of the deck beneath their feet. Sailors instinctively shifted their balance, letting the movement carry them rather than resisting it. This natural cooperation with the sea became second nature, creating a sense of harmony that shaped the entire watch experience. When clouds drifted overhead, the darkness deepened, but the lanterns provided just enough warmth to keep the atmosphere gentle. The interplay between darkness and dim light created a soothing environment that allowed sailors to remain alert without tension. It was a peaceful balance that only nighttime could offer. Occasionally, a sailor leaned against a railing simply to rest their legs for a moment. They kept their eyes open, of course, but their posture relaxed. These minor pauses were woven into the flow of the watch, moments of stillness that reflected the larger stillness of the night around them. A quiet check of the sails ensured they remained properly trimmed. The fabric rustled softly as the wind moved through it. These checks rarely required adjustment during calm nights, but the act of observing the sails helped sailors stay connected to the ship's condition, reinforcing the importance of their role. Even the simple act of walking across the deck became part of the soothing rhythm of night watch. The sound of boots lightly tapping against wood echoed faintly, blending into the natural symphony created by waves and wind. This combination created an environment that encouraged both attentiveness and relaxation. As the night reached its midpoint, the sea's rhythm remained steady. Sailors felt the consistency of the ocean beneath them, the ship moving forward with patient determination. Night watch, though a responsibility, became a form of quiet coexistence with the environment, a shared understanding between human and sea. By this time, the ship seemed wrapped in a layer of calm that nothing disturbed. The lanterns glowed softly, the sails breathed with the wind, and the footsteps of the watchkeepers continued their gentle path. In these hours, the ship felt like a peaceful world drifting slowly across the dark water. As the hours continued, sailors began to notice the subtle shift in the night air. The breeze grew cooler, brushing lightly against their clothing as they continued their rounds. This gentle change in temperature helped maintain alertness, but it never disturbed the comforting atmosphere of the ship. Instead, it added freshness to the quiet night, like a soft reminder that the ocean was breathing steadily beside them. Small details around the deck became more noticeable as minds settled deeper into the routine. The faint tapping of loose rope ends, the gentle sway of lantern shadows, and the deeper creak of the mainmast all contributed to a soundscape that guided sailors through the darkness. These quiet sounds worked together like a slow, calming rhythm, easing their thoughts into a peaceful focus. Occasionally, a sailor adjusted the lanterns along the deck, making sure each flame remained steady. The soft glow that followed their movements ensured that pathways remained gently lit. This simple maintenance felt like a comforting responsibility, an act that preserved the calmness shared by everyone on board. The lantern light wasn't bright, but it was warm, holding the darkness at bay in a soothing embrace. Some watchkeepers paused to observe the stars overhead. On clear nights, the sky stretched in a wide tapestry of shimmering points, guiding the ship with natural beauty. Sailors often used these stars for navigation during the day's work, but at night, the stars served a more peaceful role. They offered quiet company, filling the sky with soft, steady light that felt reassuring during long stretches of watch. Along the port side, a sailor might lean quietly against the railing, taking a slow breath before resuming his route. These subtle pauses helped maintain a sense of balance, both physically and mentally. The sound of water sliding along the hull created a soothing backdrop, allowing moments of reflection to blend seamlessly into the routine of the watch. When the ship traveled through calm seas, the surface of the water often appeared smooth, reflecting faint glimmers of moonlight and lantern glow. Sailors walking past the railings sometimes glanced down to see the quiet reflections moving in fluid patterns below. These gentle displays of light brought a silent beauty to the night, easing tired minds with their natural softness. The watch rotation moved with quiet coordination. As one sailor completed a circuit, another stepped in to begin theirs, creating an unbroken line of vigilance. This pattern of movement felt almost like a slow heartbeat for the ship, a steady rhythm of human presence maintaining order and calm as the night deepened. The second portion of the watch often felt slower, as the surrounding world grew quieter and more still. Sailors adapted naturally to the silence, letting their movements soften even further. The ship responded with its own calm signals, steady creaks, smooth sways, and the reliable hum of waves pressing gently against the hull. It all contributed to a serene environment that supported their focus without strain. Some sailors performed mental checklists during their rounds, reviewing knots, sail positions, and equipment stability. This internal rhythm helped maintain awareness without breaking the peaceful atmosphere. Each completed thought blended quietly into the next, like stepping stones guiding them across the dark hours of the shift. There were moments when the wind shifted, carrying a new scent across the deck, saltier, cooler, or sometimes warmer, depending on the surrounding waters. Sailors noticed these changes instantly. They didn't require discussion. The environment itself communicated through gentle signals. Recognizing these shifts helped watchkeepers feel connected to the sea's behavior, reinforcing their role as careful caretakers of the ship's well-being. As the long night wore on, the soft glow of lanterns created a world that felt separate from the vast darkness just beyond the railings. The ship became a small island of warmth, drifting gently through the ocean. Sailors walking their routes felt comfort in this contrast, the warm amber light behind them and the cool, open night stretching outward in every direction. During moments of deeper stillness, the rhythmic movement of the ship felt even more pronounced. The deck rose and fell almost imperceptibly, carrying sailors with it in a slow, steady pattern. This natural motion eased tension in tired muscles and brought a quiet sense of harmony to everyone awake. The sea's rhythm and the ship's movement blended into one steady pulse guiding them through the hours. Watchkeepers also relied on familiar touchpoints during their rounds. A certain knot they passed, a wooden post with a worn texture, a familiar creak near the mast. These small details acted as anchors, creating a sense of continuity across the night. The ship might have been surrounded by vast water, but these tactile reminders made it feel grounded and familiar. When the wind strengthened slightly, the sails responded with a soft flutter that echoed through the deck. Sailors instinctively checked the lines, ensuring everything remained stable. These adjustments were small, almost effortless, carried out in silence so as not to disturb the resting crew below. Every movement had purpose, yet every action remained wrapped in the night's gentle calm. As the watch neared its later hours, sailors began to sense the slow approach of dawn, even before the sky changed. The air shifted subtly, and the ocean's rhythm seemed to deepen. But until the first light appeared, their routine continued with the same steady focus. Night watch was not only a responsibility, it was a quiet bridge between the fading night and the coming day, held together by soft steps, lantern glow, and the calming presence of the sea. As the night settled comfortably over the ship, small pockets of quiet conversation began to form across the deck. These weren't lively exchanges or loud discussions. Instead, they were gentle, low-voiced conversations shared between sailors who had finally found a few moments of peace after a long day. The cool night air softened their tone, encouraging speech that flowed slowly and calmly, blending with the soft rhythm of the sea. Most of these conversations happened naturally, without planning. Two sailors might meet near a coil of rope, exchange a glance, and simply begin talking in muted voices. The topics were simple: how the day had gone, how the weather might behave tomorrow, or small memories from home. Nothing dramatic was needed. The night encouraged calmness in every word chosen and every pause between sentences. The lanterns surrounding them added warmth to their interactions. Light from the flickering flames softened the details of their faces, making expressions gentler and the atmosphere more relaxed. Shadows shifted lightly with the sway of the ship, creating a quiet setting that made even brief conversations feel comforting. Each voice remained low, not out of strictness, but out of respect for the stillness around them. Some sailors spoke while leaning over the railing, looking out at the open sea. Their words drifted quietly into the night, carried away almost immediately by the breeze. These talks felt especially soothing, shaped by the gentle push and pull of the waves against the hull. The sea didn't interrupt their voices. It simply layered soft sounds underneath them, like a calming accompaniment. Other conversations took place near the mast, where the ropes hung in neat lines. Sailors often stood side by side, hands resting on wooden beams as they shared thoughts. The environment encouraged a slower pace. Voices dropped to whispers, and pauses became natural parts of the dialogue. The ship seemed to cradle these quiet moments, keeping them small and contained. Below deck, lantern-lit gatherings formed small circles of warmth. Several sailors might sit on worn crates or lean against storage barrels, letting the dim glow illuminate the soft movements of their hands as they spoke. The tight space made loud voices unnecessary. Instead, they talked in steady, gentle tones that echoed lightly against the wooden walls, creating a soothing hum. Some used these moments to reflect on the distance traveled and the days ahead. They didn't speak about grand plans. Rather, their thoughts circled simple hopes, calmer seas, a smoother day of work tomorrow, or the comfort of routine. These quiet reflections helped ease the weight of long voyages, offering a sense of companionship within the darkness. A few sailors preferred silence, joining conversations only with small nods or brief responses. Their presence still mattered. Nighttime conversations at sea were never about speaking the most. They were about sharing gentle company. Even being near others in calm moments created a sense of ease, making the ship feel less vast and more like a drifting community. The gentle creak of hammocks swaying below deck added another soft layer of sound to the night. Sometimes a sailor would pause mid-sentence to listen to these faint movements, letting the natural rhythm of the ship fill the space between words. These small pauses weren't awkward. They felt restful, as if silence itself belonged in the conversation. Low voices carried a unique calmness. The absence of shouting or hurried speech gave each exchange a measured quality. Sailors talked slowly, choosing words that fit the moment. Their voices blended softly with the sounds of wind and water, creating an atmosphere that felt almost like a lullaby for those drifting towards sleep. Occasionally, laughter slipped into these discussions. Not loud bursts, but soft, warm chuckles that fit comfortably within the quiet setting. These small laughs reminded sailors of their shared humanity, making the long nights feel lighter. Even a quick smile or a brief joke could ease tension and bring a sense of warmth into the cool evening. Some conversations revolved around daily routines, tasks completed, ropes adjusted, repairs planned. Speaking about familiar responsibilities helped create a sense of structure. These practical topics didn't disturb the peace. Instead, they grounded the sailors in their shared purpose, offering reassurance that everyone understood their part in guiding the ship through the night. Others drifted into gentle storytelling. Sailors described calm days in previous journeys or small moments that had stayed with them over the years. These stories weren't told dramatically. They were shared in soft voices, shaped by the tenderness of memory. The slow rise and fall of their speech matched the sway of the ship, making every tale feel like it floated gently across the deck. When conversations grew quieter, the natural sounds of the ocean filled the gaps. The hush of waves brushing the hull and the distant call of the wind created a peaceful backdrop that encouraged sailors to soften their voices even more. This blending of sound and silence formed a soothing pattern that made the night feel longer, slower, and deeply comforting. And as the night progressed, these low conversations grew fewer, replaced by longer stretches of quiet companionship. Voices faded, but the presence of fellow crewmates remained, a calm reminder that even in the dark, even on the vast ocean, no one faced the night alone. As the hours deepened, the tone of the conversations shifted naturally into something even softer. Voices dipped lower, and sentences grew shorter, shaped by the calmness that settled over the ship. The lantern light, now swaying gently with the night breeze, created an atmosphere where every word felt cushioned, spoken not to fill the silence, but to sit comfortably within it. These quieter exchanges helped sailors ease into the later hours with a sense of peaceful connection. Some sailors shared small reflections about the sky above them. They spoke quietly about how the stars seemed clearer at sea than anywhere else, though their observations were simple and matter-of-fact. They weren't seeking awe. They were acknowledging a familiar sight that brought steady comfort. The sky, with its faint shimmer, felt like a calm companion watching over the ship during the night's slow journey. Near the stern, a few sailors talked about familiar tasks from earlier in the day. Their voices carried a practical tone softened by fatigue. They discussed ropes, sails, and weather signs, not to plan anything urgent, but to pass time gently. These conversations helped keep their minds lightly engaged, while still allowing their bodies to relax into the night's softness. Below deck, the texture of conversation changed further. Words were exchanged in whispers, often punctuated by long pauses as sailors listened to the sounds above them, the distant thud of footsteps, the creak of the ship's frame, the sighing of wooden beams responding to the sea. Each sound blended with their low voices, creating a soothing mix of human presence and natural rhythm. Some sailors preferred to share short memories, but only the quiet ones, moments from calm days at sea or peaceful mornings in earlier voyages. These recollections were spoken gently, almost as if releasing the memories back into the night. The listeners responded with soft hums or brief sentences, offering acknowledgement without interrupting the calm atmosphere. On other nights, small conversations formed around practical concerns, such as minor repairs or improvements to be done the next day. Yet even these discussions unfolded slowly, shaped by the relaxed tone of the night. The sailors knew there was no urgency. The darkness around them created a natural boundary that encouraged rest rather than planning. Occasionally, a sailor might observe something small, a shift in the wind, the faint glow of plankton in the water, or a distant shadow passing under the waves. They would quietly point it out to a companion, not with excitement but with a soft curiosity. These little observations helped maintain a gentle awareness of their surroundings while reinforcing their connection to the environment. The longer conversations gradually faded as fatigue deepened. Sailors began speaking less, offering only short responses or nods instead of words. Silence wasn't awkward in these moments. It was welcomed. The presence of others nearby, even without conversation, offered a sense of comfort that fit perfectly with the stillness of the night. A few sailors ended their conversations by settling into a comfortable position, leaning on a railing or resting against a beam, allowing the ship's movements to support their posture. The night air felt cooler now, guiding their bodies toward rest even if they remained awake for a little longer. Their voices faded into the background, replaced by the natural sounds of the ship drifting across calm waters. Later in the watch, soft murmurs continued only in short bursts. 2 or 3 words exchanged, a small comment on the rhythm of the waves, or a quiet acknowledgement of the hour passing. These gentle fragments of dialogue felt appropriate for the late hours, contributing to the softness of the ship's atmosphere. As lanterns dimmed slightly with the passing time, the glow became warmer and deeper. This shift in light softened the mood even further, creating a comforting cocoon for any remaining late-night talks. The shadows thickened in corners, but never in a way that felt unsettling. Instead, they enhanced the sense of quiet intimacy shared between sailors who remained awake. Eventually, the majority of conversations faded into near silence. Only the faintest whispers or occasional low chuckles echoed between the wooden walls or across the open deck. The sailors understood the unspoken agreement of the night. Calmness was the priority, and every voice honored the stillness as they eased into the later hours. As the ship continued forward, sailors began to part ways from their small gatherings. Some returned to their hammocks, others resumed their watch duties, and a few simply stood in solitude, listening to the ocean. These final movements carried the same softness as the conversations themselves, completing a quiet transition into the deeper hours of the night. And when the last few low voices settled into silence, the ship embraced the full calm of night once again. The ocean's steady rhythm filled the spaces where conversation had been, guiding the sailors gently toward rest or mindful vigilance as the voyage carried on. As the night grew deeper, a different kind of calm settled across the ship, one shaped by quiet focus rather than conversation. In small corners of the deck, a few sailors used these peaceful hours to tend to simple repairs. The stillness of the evening made these tasks feel easier, almost meditative, as though the gentle rocking of the ship encouraged slow, steady movements. Most of the repairs were small, patching worn clothing, adjusting ropes, or cleaning tools that had seen heavy use during the day. These tasks didn't require much space or light. A single lantern nearby was enough to guide their hands. The warm glow created a circle of clarity in the surrounding darkness, turning that tiny patch of deck into a calm workspace where time seemed to move more slowly. Some sailors sat cross-legged on the wooden planks, working with needle and thread. The soft, rhythmic pull of fiber through fabric created its own subtle soundtrack. Each stitch felt like a quiet step toward restoring order, a small way of preparing for the next day. Instead of feeling like chores, these repairs brought a sense of grounded purpose, simple actions to keep the ship running smoothly. Others preferred to sit on a small crate, sharpening a tool or smoothing a rough handle. They moved with unhurried patience, letting the night guide their pace. The gentle scrape of metal against stone or wood blended naturally with the sounds of the ocean, becoming part of the ship's nighttime rhythm. These moments offered a chance to reset the mind while keeping the hands gently occupied. For rope work, sailors often pulled a coil beside them and leaned in close to inspect each section. The fibers, worn from long hours of tension and exposure, told the story of the day's work. Repairing a frayed end or tightening a knot required attention, but not strain. The repetitive motions brought a calming consistency that soothed tired thoughts. Some chose to work near the mast where the lantern light was steady. The tall wooden structure gave them something sturdy to lean against as they mended lines or adjusted wraps. The mast creaked softly whenever the wind shifted, creating gentle vibrations that traveled through the ship. These motions became part of the repair ritual, a steady reminder of the vessel's movement beneath them. Even in the lower deck, where space was tighter, sailors found quiet corners to tend to their gear. A lantern hung overhead cast a warm glow over stacks of supplies, barrels, and hammocks. The dimness made their work feel private and focused. The hum of soft breathing from those already asleep created a calm undercurrent that wrapped around every small sound. Sometimes, repairs required teamwork, even in the stillness of night. Two sailors might sit side by side, one holding a rope taut while the other worked to splice or bind it. They communicated with quiet gestures and short whispers, moving in sync without disrupting the peaceful atmosphere. These small cooperations strengthened their sense of trust and companionship. The quiet hours also provided time for sailors to examine more delicate items, journals, small tools, or personal belongings. They wiped away dust, smoothed creases, or tightened hinges. Even these simple tasks carried meaning. Caring for their belongings reminded them of the importance of taking care, not only of the ship, but of themselves. The lantern flame flickered gently as sailors worked, casting slow-moving shadows across their hands. These shadows moved with the same rhythm as the ship's sway, adding a soothing visual pattern to the night. The harmony between light, movement, and silence created an atmosphere where concentration flowed naturally and peacefully. Fatigue didn't rush their movements. Instead, it guided them towards slower, more thoughtful motions. The repairs were not about speed. They were about restoring the small things that kept daily life manageable. Each completed stitch, tightened knot, or smoothed surface felt like a quiet accomplishment within the serenity of the night. The scent of wooden beams and rope fibers mixed with the faint aroma of lantern oil, creating a familiar backdrop for their work. These smells, softened by the sea breeze, added to the comforting environment. They symbolized routine, continuity, and the steady passage of the voyage. Some sailors paused occasionally, resting their hands on their knees while listening to the ocean outside. The waves brushed against the hull with soft persistence, reminding them of the vast world surrounding their small floating home. The simplicity of their tasks offered a grounding contrast to the openness of the sea. As the night moved forward, the repairs gradually neared completion. The sailors stretched their fingers, inspected their work, and set their tools aside with quiet satisfaction. Their tasks, though small, contributed to the safety and comfort of the crew. In the stillness of night, every repaired item held meaning. When they finally stood up from their workspaces, the ship felt even calmer than before. The lanterns swayed gently overhead, and the ocean's steady rhythm welcomed them back into the broader quiet of the night. Their repairs complete, they allowed the peaceful atmosphere to guide them toward rest or the next quiet task the night offered. As the night deepened further, the repair work continued in gentle pockets of activity scattered across the ship. The quietness surrounding these tasks made every movement feel more intentional. Sailors found comfort in the slow, steady pace, letting the night's stillness guide their hands. These moments weren't rushed. They unfolded with the natural rhythm of the ship drifting across calm waters. Some sailors shifted their focus to checking the seams of their clothing. They held the fabric close to the lantern light, carefully inspecting each thread for signs of wear. The repetitive motion of needle and thread, combined with the soft swaying of the ship, created a soothing effect that helped ease lingering tension from a long day of work. Every small repair contributed to their preparedness for the days ahead. Others worked on personal tools, small knives, scrapers, or wooden handles that needed smoothing. They ran their fingers along the edges, feeling for roughness, then worked slowly to restore each surface. The quiet scraping sounds blended gently with the ship's creaks and the whispers of distant waves. Simple motions like these offered a grounding sense of control in an environment shaped by constant movement. In quieter corners below deck, sailors inspected bags and pouches that held their essential items. They tightened loose straps, replaced worn ties, and ensured everything remained secure. These tasks required little light, yet they carried significance. Taking care of their belongings helped them feel more at ease, giving a sense of order in the midst of life at sea. Some sailors examined sections of rope that had endured heavy strain. They leaned close to the fibers, turning them slowly in their hands, searching for damage. Where they found fraying, they trimmed and reinforced the lines with practiced technique. These careful repairs protected the ship's equipment from future failure, and doing them at night meant the next day would begin in a stronger, more prepared state. A few worked together on more complex tasks, such as splicing thicker ropes or adjusting pulleys. Their communication remained soft and minimal, a nod, a gesture, or a single whispered word. The teamwork brought comfort, reminding them that even in the quiet hours, they shared responsibilities. The connections formed during these moments strengthened the unity that kept the crew steady through long voyages. Occasionally, lantern light dimmed slightly as oil levels dropped. Sailors adjusted the flame gently or refilled the reservoir, maintaining the warm glow that supported their work. The steady light helped keep the atmosphere peaceful. Every small adjustment reflected their care for the tools and environment that supported their nightly routines. The night air sometimes slipped down through the open hatches, carrying a cool breeze that brushed against their hands and faces. This subtle change in temperature helped keep them alert, even as the environment encouraged rest. The mix of calm focus and refreshing air created a balance that made their slow tasks feel satisfying rather than tiring. As the hours passed, the repairs gradually moved toward completion. Tools were cleaned and returned to their places, clothing neatly folded, and ropes coiled with careful precision. Each task wrapped up with quiet satisfaction. The simplicity of these routines offered emotional ease, allowing sailors to feel a sense of progress even in the calmest hours of the night. Some sailors paused to look at their finished work, holding it briefly toward the lantern light. These small moments of reflection allowed them to appreciate the value of their efforts. The gear they maintained supported their daily lives aboard the ship. Caring for it during peaceful moments reinforced their connection to the vessel and to each other. As they finished, the sailors stretched their tired fingers and took a slow breath. The gentle motion of the ship continued around them, offering calm and reassurance. Their bodies felt lighter, their minds clearer. These nighttime tasks, though simple, held a quiet meaning, an opportunity to reset both their surroundings and their thoughts. A few remained seated for a moment, listening to the soft blend of ship sounds echoing around them. The faint rustle of sails overhead, the occasional creak of wooden beams, and the steady whisper of water against the hull created an atmosphere that encouraged restfulness. In this peaceful environment, even silence felt full, comforting, and alive. As lanterns swayed above them, casting warm, shifting patterns along the walls and floor, the sailors began standing one by one. Their tasks complete, they eased themselves back into the flow of the night. Whether they moved toward their hammocks or stepped outside for fresh air, their bodies carried the unhurried pace shaped by the stillness around them. And when the last of the tools was stored and the lanterns trimmed for the hours ahead, the ship held a renewed sense of order. The repairs, though small, contributed to the vessel's quiet strength. With their duties finished and the night still embracing the ship in calmness, the sailors let themselves return to rest, guided gently by the soft rhythm of the sea. As the night settled deeper across the ship, a comforting routine began below deck. A handful of sailors gathered quietly for their late evening meal, sharing food in an atmosphere shaped by calmness rather than chatter. The warm scent of simple dishes drifted through the narrow space, welcoming tired bodies into a moment of soft relief. These meals weren't grand. but they carried a sense of familiarity that felt almost like warmth wrapping gently around the crew. Bowls of broth, rice, or preserved fish were passed with care, each movement slow and unhurried. Lantern light cast soft reflections on the metal cups and wooden bowls, giving the meal a gentle glow. The sailors sat close together, yet they spoke only in low tones, if at all. The calm rhythm of eating at night blended seamlessly with the hush of the ship, creating a setting where even simple bites offered comfort. Some sailors savored the warmth of their food, holding their bowls close as the steam rose softly into the cool night air. The heat eased the tension in their hands and faces after a day exposed to wind and sun. Eating slowly helped them transition from the demands of the day into the restful quiet of night. Nothing hurried them. The darkness outside encouraged a pace that felt natural and soothing. The clink of spoons against bowls was gentle, almost melodic. Each soft sound echoed lightly through the wooden room, becoming part of the nighttime soundscape. These small noises, softened by the ship's structure, carried a sense of intimacy. They reminded the sailors that the space around them, though small, held a kind of peace only found in quiet, shared routines. For some, the meal was a moment to breathe deeply and allow their minds to settle. The familiar tastes and textures grounded them, drawing their attention away from the vastness of the sea. This time was not about satisfying hunger alone. It was about letting the body relax at a time when the world outside felt slow and calm. Others used the meal to reflect on small blessings within their day, a smoother stretch of ocean, a successful task completed, or an unexpected moment of quiet. These thoughts drifted gently through their minds as they ate. They didn't speak them aloud, but the calm environment allowed these reflections to take shape naturally, easing their spirits. The lanterns swayed slightly overhead, sending shifting patterns of light across the table and walls. These movements gave the room a soft, dreamlike quality. Shadows drifted over sailors' hands as they reached for utensils or pushed their bowls closer, creating a slow, rhythmic interplay of light and motion that encouraged a feeling of restfulness. Some sailors chose to eat standing near a beam or leaning against a wooden post, preferring to remain half awake for their next task. Their quiet posture matched the mood of the room. Even while standing, they moved slowly, taking small bites while keeping one hand steady against the ship's gentle sway. The calmness of the environment made every position comfortable. A few shared small comments about the food, perhaps noting its warmth or its familiar taste after a long day. Their words remained soft, adding gentle notes to the quiet air without disturbing those who preferred to eat in silence. These brief exchanges created a faint sense of camaraderie that strengthened bonds without requiring lengthy conversation. The simple menu of the night meal gave sailors stability. They knew what to expect, and that certainty created comfort. Even if the day had been unpredictable, the meal offered a moment of routine. Warm broth, preserved fish, or plain rice might not have been elaborate, but their reliability made them feel almost soothing. As the sailors continued eating, the sounds of the ocean outside remained steady. Waves brushed against the hull with a calming persistence, creating a background rhythm that matched the slow pace of the meal. The combination of soft voices, gentle clinks, and the ocean's whisper formed a peaceful harmony that encouraged restful thoughts. Some sailors finished early and sat quietly with their bowls resting in their laps, letting their minds drift. They weren't thinking of responsibilities or tasks. Instead, they absorbed the stillness around them, allowing fatigue to soften their thoughts as they leaned back against wooden beams warmed by lantern light. Others lingered a little longer, appreciating the warmth of the room before returning to the cooler air above deck. They took slow, deliberate bites, savoring the final moments of calm before moving on. The night meal provided a small space where time felt slower, giving them a chance to fully embrace the quiet. As bowls were finally set aside and utensils gathered, silence settled again. The sailors rose from their seats with unhurried motions, stretching their shoulders and adjusting their clothing. The meal had restored them in a modest yet meaningful way, easing both hunger and weariness. And as they prepared to move on, whether to their hammocks or to another quiet task, the gentle comfort of the meal lingered with them, guiding their bodies into the deeper calm of the night. As some sailors finished their meals, they took a moment to tidy their small eating spaces. Wooden bowls were stacked neatly, and cups were placed in designated spots, making the room feel orderly before the night deepened further. These simple actions offered a sense of closure, helping their minds transition from nourishment to rest. The soft sounds of organizing, light taps of wood against wood, the gentle slide of utensils, blended naturally into the calmness around them. A few sailors remained seated, stretching their legs as they leaned back against the wooden beams. Their breathing slowed, softened by the warmth of the meal. The lantern glow above them flickered gently, creating a comforting play of light that eased their tired eyes. In these lingering moments, no one rushed to leave. It was a shared pause, a brief window of stillness before the next movement of the night. Some sailors dipped small pieces of bread or biscuits into the last of their broth, savoring the warmth. Even these final bites carried a kind of quiet satisfaction. They ate thoughtfully, letting the taste and heat settle into their bodies. The familiarity of the food helped anchor them, especially after long hours spent on deck facing wind, spray, and shifting weather. A soft murmur occasionally passed between those still gathered. These exchanges weren't full conversations, just gentle acknowledgements, a comment on the calmness of the night or the warmth of the meal. Their voices remained subdued, shaped by the atmosphere rather than any strict requirement. The room itself seemed to encourage lower tones, as if inviting them to relax more deeply with every word they spoke. The gentle motion of the ship played a subtle role in the meal's closing moments. As the vessel swayed, bowls and cups shifted slightly on the table, creating faint, rhythmic taps that echoed softly through the space. This natural rhythm provided a soothing backdrop, reminding sailors of the steady movement guiding them across the sea. Some sailors began preparing for rest, gathering their belongings or adjusting their jackets before walking to their hammocks. Their steps were slow and quiet, echoing lightly on the wooden floor. These movements carried a sense of routine, familiar actions done countless times before, now softened by the calmness of the meal. Each step guided them closer to the comfort of sleep. In corners of the room, a few paused to warm their hands near a lantern, letting the gentle heat sink into their palms. The soft glow illuminated their calm expressions, revealing the fatigue that sat quietly in their eyes. This small ritual offered comfort, a moment to gather warmth before stepping into the cooler air of the ship's deeper corridors. Others preferred to remain a little longer, enjoying the peaceful company of their crewmates. They sat quietly, absorbing the atmosphere, the scent of food lingering in the air, the soft lantern glow, and the steady creak of the ship. These moments of shared stillness held a quiet sense of togetherness, a reminder that even in the vastness of the ocean, they were part of a community. As the last sailors finished eating, the room began to empty. Conversations faded, replaced by the gentle sounds of footsteps moving toward different parts of the ship. The lanterns continued to sway lightly, casting shifting shadows that softened the wooden walls. The ebbing light marked the end of the meal, guiding the crew toward rest with unspoken reassurance. Some paused to take one more sip of warm broth, letting the heat slide slowly down their throats. This final act felt grounding, as though it sealed the calmness they'd found during the meal. The warmth inside them contrasted pleasantly with the coolness waiting beyond the room, creating a sense of balance that eased their transition into the quieter hours of the night. Above deck, the distant sounds of waves continued their steady lullaby, echoing faintly through the planks. These soothing rhythms seeped into the room, shaping the final moments of the sailors' dinner time. The ocean's presence was constant, yet gentle, never demanding, only guiding them deeper into restfulness. As the lanterns dimmed slightly, the shadows grew softer. This change signaled that the night was moving forward, encouraging any remaining sailors to rise from their seats. They gathered themselves slowly, taking quiet breaths before stepping toward their hammocks or late-night duties. The peaceful glow of the meal lingered with them, wrapping around their thoughts like a soft blanket. A few sailors brushed crumbs from their clothing or wiped their hands clean before moving on. These small rituals, though simple, grounded them in the present moment. They reminded the crew that even in a life of constant movement, there were still opportunities for small comforts, warm meals, shared quiet, and the steady presence of familiar routines. And as the room finally emptied, the remaining warmth from the meal seemed to linger in the air, mixing with the soft scent of wood and lantern oil. The quiet atmosphere embraced the ship once more, guiding the sailors gently toward rest, reflection, and the peaceful silence of the night ahead. As the calm of late evening wrapped itself around the ship, some sailors found a quiet corner to write letters they knew wouldn't be sent for weeks or even months. They sat near lanterns whose soft glow illuminated just enough of the page for them to see their words. There was something soothing in this nightly habit, a gentle ritual that allowed thoughts to unwind across paper as the ship drifted steadily through the dark. The texture of the rough paper, the faint scratch of a quill or pencil, and the rhythmic sway of the ship created an atmosphere where writing felt deeply calming. These weren't formal letters. They were simple reflections, updates on their days, memories of home, and quiet hopes for smoother seas. The act of writing helped soothe their minds, offering a sense of connection despite the distance that separated them from loved ones. Some sailors leaned over their makeshift desks, shielding the pages from the lantern sway. Their handwriting moved slowly, shaped as much by the ship's gentle rocking as by their thoughts. Each sentence appeared like a piece of the night itself, soft, quiet, unhurried. Even those who didn't write often found comfort in the steady movement of pen across paper. Others chose to write while sitting on crates or low benches, resting the page against their knees. Their posture relaxed as they focused on their words, letting the night's calmness flow through their reflections. The soft glow around them created a bubble of warmth where time felt slower, allowing them to carefully choose phrases that carried the weight of long days at sea. A few wrote only brief notes, simple lines meant to reassure those waiting for them on land. These short messages held meaning beyond their length. Each word reflected the sailors' desire to stay connected, to let loved ones know they were safe, and to share pieces of their quiet nights beneath the shifting lantern light. Some sailors wrote about the natural world around them, the vast ocean, the changing sky, the peaceful sounds of night watches. These reflections didn't describe grand scenes, but rather the gentle, everyday details that shaped life on the ship. Writing them down helped the sailors process their surroundings, giving structure to the calmness that followed challenging days. There were also letters filled with descriptions of routine tasks, maintaining ropes, preparing meals, watching the horizon. These accounts seemed simple, yet they held a quiet honesty that made the writing feel meaningful. The sailors didn't embellish their days. They recorded them as they were, letting the night soften the edges of their thoughts. Occasionally, a sailor paused mid-sentence to listen to the ship's familiar creaks or the distant splash of waves. These interruptions weren't distractions. They were part of the writing process. Each sound shaped the next line, weaving the environment into the letter in subtle ways. The night whispered its presence onto the page through these quiet pauses. As the lantern flame shifted with the breeze, shadows danced lightly across the paper. Sailors adjusted their writing angle, guiding their pens with steady patience. These small movements added to the meditative quality of the moment. Writing became less about the message itself and more about the gentle act of expression. Some sailors chose to fold finished letters neatly and tuck them into a pouch or small box. They knew the words would remain unsent for some time, yet storing them with care brought comfort. Each folded letter became a quiet promise, a message waiting patiently for the next port, where it could finally travel toward its intended hands. Others left their letters unfinished, content to return to them another night. They placed the pages carefully beside their hammocks or inside their jackets, letting the words rest until their thoughts felt ready to continue. These unfinished letters carried a softness of their own, reflecting the gentle pauses encouraged by the calm night. A few sailors noticed that writing helped ease the weight of distance. Even though the letters wouldn't be read anytime soon, they acted as bridges, simple connections built from ink and intention. In the quiet glow of lantern light, these connections helped soften the loneliness that sometimes lingered after long days at sea. Some wrote not to communicate, but to remember. They recorded small details about the weather, their tasks, or the gentle atmosphere of the night. These journals became personal companions, silent spaces to place their thoughts so they didn't drift away in the vastness of the ocean. Writing at night brought a kind of softness that daytime couldn't offer. The stillness, the warm lantern glow, and the slow rhythm of the sea combined to create a perfect setting for reflection. Every stroke of pen across paper became part of the ship's nightly routine, shaping memories that would carry them through the voyage. And as more sailors finished their letters and set their writing tools aside, the quiet corners of the ship grew peaceful once again. The lanterns continued their gentle sway, illuminating the folded pages and half-written lines that would wait patiently until dawn and beyond. As the calm of late evening wrapped itself around the ship, some sailors found a quiet corner to write letters they knew wouldn't be sent for weeks or even months. They sat near lanterns whose soft glow illuminated just enough of the page for them to see their words. There was something soothing in this nightly habit, a gentle ritual that allowed thoughts to unwind across paper as the ship drifted steadily through the dark. The texture of the rough paper, the faint scratch of a quill or pencil, and the rhythmic sway of the ship created an atmosphere where writing felt deeply calming. These weren't formal letters. They were simple reflections, updates on their days, memories of home, and quiet hopes for smoother seas. The act of writing helped soothe their minds, offering a sense of connection despite the distance that separated them from loved ones. Some sailors leaned over their makeshift desks, shielding the pages from the lantern sway. Their handwriting moved slowly, shaped as much by the ship's gentle rocking as by their thoughts. Each sentence appeared like a piece of the night itself, soft, quiet, unhurried. Even those who didn't write often found comfort in the steady movement of pen across paper. Others chose to write while sitting on crates or low benches, resting the page against their knees. Their posture relaxed as they focused on their words, letting the night's calmness flow through their reflections. The soft glow around them created a bubble of warmth where time felt slower, allowing them to carefully choose phrases that carried the weight of long days at sea. A few wrote only brief notes, simple lines meant to reassure those waiting for them on land. These short messages held meaning beyond their length. Each word reflected the sailor's desire to stay connected, to let loved ones know they were safe, and to share pieces of their quiet nights beneath the shifting lantern light. Some sailors wrote about the natural world around them, the vast ocean, the changing sky, the peaceful sounds of night watches. These reflections didn't describe grand scenes, but rather the gentle, everyday details that shaped life on the ship. Writing them down helped the sailors process their surroundings, giving structure to the calmness that followed challenging days. There were also letters filled with descriptions of routine tasks, maintaining ropes, preparing meals, watching the horizon. These accounts seemed simple, yet they held a quiet honesty that made the writing feel meaningful. The sailors didn't embellish their days. They recorded them as they were, letting the night soften the edges of their thoughts. Occasionally, a sailor paused mid-sentence to listen to the ship's familiar creaks or the distant splash of waves. These interruptions weren't distractions. They were part of the writing process. Each sound shaped the next line, weaving the environment into the letter in subtle ways. The night whispered its presence onto the page through these quiet pauses. As the lantern flame shifted with the breeze, shadows danced lightly across the paper. Sailors adjusted their writing angle, guiding their pens with steady patience. These small movements added to the meditative quality of the moment. Writing became less about the message itself and more about the gentle act of expression. Some sailors chose to fold finished letters neatly and tuck them into a pouch or small box. They knew the words would remain unsent for some time, yet storing them with care brought comfort. Each folded letter became a quiet promise, a message waiting patiently for the next port, where it could finally travel toward its intended hands. Others left their letters unfinished, content to return to them another night. They placed the pages carefully beside their hammocks or inside their jackets, letting the words rest until their thoughts felt ready to continue. These unfinished letters carried a softness of their own, reflecting the gentle pauses encouraged by the calm night. A few sailors noticed that writing helped ease the weight of distance. Even though the letters wouldn't be read anytime soon, they acted as bridges, simple connections built from ink and intention. In the quiet glow of lantern light, these connections helped soften the loneliness that sometimes lingered after long days at sea. Some wrote not to communicate, but to remember. They recorded small details about the weather, their tasks, or the gentle atmosphere of the night. These journals became personal companions, silent spaces to place their thoughts so they didn't drift away in the vastness of the ocean. Riding at night brought a kind of softness that daytime couldn't offer. The stillness, the warm lantern glow, and the slow rhythm of the sea combined to create a perfect setting for reflection. Every stroke of pen across paper became part of the ship's nightly routine, shaping memories that would carry them through the voyage. And as more sailors finished their letters and set their writing tools aside, the quiet corners of the ship grew peaceful once again. The lanterns continued their gentle sway, illuminating the folded pages and half-written lines that would wait patiently until dawn and beyond. As the ship settled into the deeper hours of the night, a special kind of quiet emerged, one shaped not by silence but by the gentle sounds that defined life at sea. Sailors who remained awake found themselves naturally drawn into listening, allowing the ship's soft noises to ease their thoughts. The steady rhythm of these sounds created a calming presence, something familiar and grounding that accompanied them through the darkness. The first sound many noticed was the gentle brushing of waves against the hull. The water didn't crash or roar, it whispered. Each soft rush carried a soothing tone that repeated itself with steady patience, rising and falling in harmony with the ship's slow movements. This consistent rhythm gave the night a heartbeat, something steady for tired minds to lean into. Above them, the wooden beams let out small creaks as the ship shifted with the wind. These sounds were subtle but comforting, like quiet reminders that the vessel was alive with movement. Sailors grew accustomed to these tiny groans and sighs from the structure. They signaled that everything was working as it should. Nothing strained, nothing rushed, just the ship breathing gently in the night. Sometimes, the sails above caught a mild current of wind, causing them to flutter softly. The faint flutter carried through the rigging, sending delicate vibrations down the mast. This whisper-like sound blended with the ocean's rhythm, adding a light texture to the ship's nighttime symphony. It was a sound that rarely demanded attention, yet always soothed the listener. The ropes that stretched across the deck also played their part. When the ship tilted slightly, certain lines tightened or relaxed, producing faint taps or soft rubbing noises against wooden surfaces. These subtle movements were almost musical, rising and falling in response to the sea. Sailors who paused to listen often found comfort in the predictability of these sounds. Below deck, the ship's frame responded to shifting waves with gentle thuds and hollow echoes. These weren't alarming noises, just the natural conversation between the vessel and the ocean. Sailors lying awake in their hammocks often found the sounds comforting, like a quiet reminder that the ship kept watch with them through the night. Some sailors stood near the railings, listening more closely to the swirling water beneath them. The ocean produced small gurgles and swirling patterns as it parted around the hull. These sounds had a soft, fluid quality that helped calm wandering thoughts. Standing there, one could feel the sea's presence not through sight, but through sound alone. A sailor leaning against the mast might hear the tiny vibrations traveling through the wooden pole. These vibrations were caused by the wind interacting with the rigging above. They created a subtle hum, a faint, steady note that blended seamlessly with the night's calm. Listening to it felt like tuning into the ship's quiet voice. When the wind changed direction, it sometimes slipped between gaps in the wooden planks or around edges of equipment, creating a low and gentle whistle. This wasn't a cold or eerie sound. It was simply another natural expression of the night. The soft whistle threaded through the air and encouraged slower breathing, easing tension from tired bodies. In the dimly lit corridors below deck, sailors heard a different collection of sounds. There was the distant swaying of hammocks, the soft rustle of fabric, and the gentle rhythm of footsteps overhead. These small, muffled noises created a cocoon-like atmosphere that made rest feel inviting. The ship wrapped itself around them like a blanket woven from night and wood. Occasionally, a light tap echoed through the deck as loose objects shifted slightly with the ship's tilt. A wooden cup bumped softly against a crate, or a rope end brushed against a beam. These tiny sounds reassured sailors that the world around them remained familiar. Nothing unexpected disturbed the calm. Everything moved with the ship's slow rhythm. Some sailors paused simply to breathe and listen deeply. With their eyes closed, the ship's quiet melody became clearer. Water brushing, wood creaking, wind whispering. In these moments, the noises blended into a soothing harmony that helped the body relax and the mind settle. Listening became a form of unwinding, a way to let go of worries from the long day. Those finishing their watch sometimes lingered for a moment before heading to their hammocks. The sounds of the night welcomed them, offering one last connection to the calm environment before they stepped below. The familiar noises created a peaceful transition between wakefulness and rest, guiding them gently towards sleep. The lantern swayed softly above the deck, adding a faint metallic clink as their hooks shifted. This quiet sound mixed with the warm glow to create a peaceful ambience that felt comforting to anyone passing by. Even if the lanterns made almost no noise, the slight movement of their metal frames contributed to the night's quiet identity. And as sailors settled into the deeper hours, the ship's collection of sounds continued their gentle rhythm. None of them were loud or startling. Each sound was a subtle brushstroke in the canvas of the night. For those awake enough to listen, these quiet noises offered a sense of companionship, guiding them steadily through the darkness until rest finally called. As the night drifted onward, sailors began noticing the deeper tones hidden within the ship's quiet symphony. The lower hull occasionally released a soft, resonant groan as it adjusted to the pressure of the surrounding water. These deep sounds were slow and measured, vibrating gently through the planks. Rather than unsettling the crew, they brought reassurance. They were familiar signals that the ship was adapting naturally to the sea's movement. Some sailors resting in their hammocks could feel these vibrations more than they heard them. The slight tremble beneath their backs acted like a gentle reminder of the ocean's presence. These sensations blended smoothly with the distant whisper of waves, creating a comforting background that helped their bodies relax into the swaying rhythm of the night. On deck, a different sound emerged when the wind shifted across the sails. A low ripple ran through the canvas, followed by a soft flap that echoed faintly through the rigging. This wasn't a sudden change. It flowed like a sigh, a natural breath of the ship responding to a new angle of wind. Sailors listening closely understood these subtle cues, letting them inform their awareness without breaking the night's pace. Occasionally, a small splash could be heard along the starboard side, caused by bits of floating debris or fish briefly disturbing the water. These sounds were gentle and quick, easily blending into the ocean's broader rhythm. For the sailors awake to hear them, each splash added a tiny layer of texture to the night soundscape, like a quiet punctuation mark in a long sentence of calm. Inside the storage areas below, crates and barrels shifted slightly with the ship's tilt, producing muffled knocks. These knocks were slow, spaced out, and harmless, objects simply settling into place as the vessel moved. Sailors familiar with the ship learned to distinguish between these natural noises and anything that required attention. The familiarity brought a sense of ease, allowing them to rest without concern. Some sailors paused during their late-night tasks just to tune their ears to the environment. With no daylight distractions, every small sound became clearer. The faint rubbing of ropes along the mast, the creaking joints between wooden boards, and the gentle slush of water within the lower hull all contributed to a serene auditory landscape. Listening in this way brought a sense of mindfulness, a quiet connection to the moment. A lantern's metal frame sometimes made a soft tick as the ship leaned slightly, causing the glass to tap against its enclosure. The tiny sound echoed faintly through the quiet air, adding another delicate note to the night's ensemble. These subtle details reminded sailors that even the smallest elements aboard contributed to the ship's personality and its nighttime voice. There were moments when the ocean itself seemed to soften its presence, creating long stretches of near silence. In these periods, the ship's internal sounds became more noticeable: the low hum of wood, the faint shiver of sails, the gentle movement of air through tight spaces. This heightened awareness deepened the sense of peace, encouraging sailors to breathe more slowly and settle deeper into rest. In the dim corridors near the sleeping quarters, the sound of gentle breathing floated through the air. Hammocks swayed in slow unison, their ropes creaking quietly as the ship rocked. This harmony of breath and motion created a warm sense of shared tranquility. Even those still awake found comfort in hearing their crewmates resting peacefully nearby. Some sailors deliberately positioned themselves near familiar sounds before sleep. A quiet spot near the hull might offer deeper, more resonant tones, while a place closer to the deck provided softer, rhythmic noises. Choosing where to rest based on sound allowed them to shape their environment in ways that soothed their thoughts and eased their bodies into relaxation. Above deck, sailors sometimes listened for distant calls of seabirds flying overhead. Though rare at night, these soft cries carried across the stillness, adding an element of life beyond the ship's wooden boundaries. The sounds were faint, softened by the wind, but they offered a small reminder that the world around them continued even in darkness. At times, the night grew so quiet that sailors noticed their own breathing blending with the ship's sounds. Their inhalations matched the rise of the waves, and their exhalations matched the gentle settling of the hull. This natural synchronization helped ease tension, creating a peaceful union between the rhythm of the body and the rhythm of the sea. As the night neared its midpoint, the ship's sounds remained steady. No sudden events disrupted the atmosphere. Instead, the quiet compilation of creaks, whispers, taps, and breaths created a continuous flow of comfort. These sounds shaped the emotional landscape of the ship, guiding sailors through the darkness without rush or worry. Some sailors who walked the deck lingered at certain spots just to hear the ocean from different angles. A shift in perspective changed the tone of the water's whispers. The bow brought a stronger rush, while the stern carried deeper, swirling notes. Listening to these variations felt like discovering new layers within a familiar melody. And as the final hours of the night approached, the ship continued speaking in its soft, steady voice. Every sound remained gentle, every movement predictable. For those still awake, the ship's quiet symphony offered a sense of steady companionship, guiding them toward the calmest part of the night, where thoughts grew soft and sleep waited patiently. As the later hours of the night settled over the ship, most sailors began returning to their sleeping quarters. The quiet atmosphere encouraged slow movements, soft footsteps, and calm breaths. Below deck, the dim lantern glow created pockets of warm light that guided them through the narrow passageways. This gentle illumination made the space feel sheltered and peaceful, a stark contrast to the open darkness above. Hammocks hung in neat rows, each swaying with the natural motion of the ship. The slow back and forth movement gave the room a calming rhythm, one that lulled even the most restless sailors into a state of ease. The fabric creaked softly as bodies settled into it, becoming part of the ship's nightly soundtrack. The sound wasn't disruptive. It blended harmoniously with the gentle rocking of the vessel. Many sailors treasured the moment of climbing into their hammocks. It marked a transition from the demands of the day to the peacefulness of rest. They carefully stepped into the fabric, gripping the sturdy ropes before letting their weight ease down. Once inside, the hammock cradled them securely, molding to their shape and offering comfort after hours of effort on deck. Some sailors preferred the quiet corners of the sleeping area. They chose hammocks slightly separated from the main row, where shadows lingered a bit longer and lantern light was softer. These spaces offered an added sense of privacy. In these tucked-away spots, sailors could unwind fully, letting their thoughts settle without interruption. Others settled into bunks placed along the sides of the lower deck. These wooden frames, though simple, provided stable surfaces that felt reassuring after spending day and night on the constantly shifting sea. The bunks offered a different kind of comfort, stillness within movement. The sailors lying in them could feel the ship sway through the mattress, a gentle reminder of the ocean beneath. Before lying down, some sailors took a moment to adjust their blankets or clothing, smoothing out wrinkles and ensuring warmth against the cool night air. These small rituals made the sleeping space feel more personal, even in shared quarters. Preparing for rest became a quiet routine that helped guide their minds into stillness. The soft lantern glow made shadows dance lightly along the walls and beams. These shifting shapes created a comforting atmosphere, dim enough to encourage sleep, yet warm enough to make the space feel welcoming. The interplay of light and shadow added a dreamlike quality to the room, enhancing the sense of peaceful transition into rest. As sailors settled into their hammocks, they could feel the ship's slow breathing movement beneath them. The rise and fall of the vessel guided their bodies into a natural sway. This gentle motion acted like a lullaby, easing tension in their muscles and slowing their heartbeat. The effect was subtle but soothing, creating a perfect environment for rest. Some sailors kept their eyes open for a few extra moments, watching the lanterns sway overhead. The movement of the flame inside its glass enclosure created soft, rhythmic patterns of light. These patterns relaxed their gaze and quieted their minds. Eventually, their eyelids grew heavy, allowing them to sink deeper into the darkness behind their thoughts. Others closed their eyes almost immediately, welcoming the warmth of the hammock. The fabric enveloped them like a gentle hug, softening the edges of their fatigue. Their breaths lengthened and settled into an easy rhythm. Each exhale released a bit more of the day's weight, carried away by the quiet air around them. Occasionally, a faint murmur or soft sigh traveled through the sleeping quarters. These sounds were never intrusive. Instead, they contributed to the sense of shared rest. The presence of fellow sailors drifting towards sleep created a harmonious calmness, reminding everyone aboard that they were resting together in the same small world. Some sailors found comfort in the small details of the room, the scent of wood warmed by lantern light, the slight touch of cool air drifting in through cracks in the hull, or the familiar sound of ropes shifting gently overhead. These elements combined into a peaceful backdrop, easing their minds into a state of quiet comfort. The hammocks responded to every slight movement of the body, adjusting effortlessly. This responsiveness added to the soothing experience, making rest feel natural and supported. Unlike rigid beds, the hammock cradled every shift in posture, helping sailors relax without strain. A few sailors allowed their thoughts to drift as they lay quietly. They didn't focus on worries or tasks. Instead, their minds wandered through gentle memories, calm nights from past voyages, familiar landscapes seen from shore, or quiet moments shared with companions. These thoughts flowed softly, shaped by the peaceful atmosphere of the room. And as the room settled into its nighttime rhythm, the collective sway of hammocks, the soft breathing, and the faint whisper of the ocean blended into a serene lull. The sailors rested in their small, gentle spaces, carried through the night by the steady movement of the sea. As the night deepened, the hammock swayed with an even gentler rhythm, responding to the calmer waves outside. Some sailors shifted slightly in their sleep, causing the fabric to sway a little more before settling again. These movements created a quiet choreography across the room, hammocks rising and falling in soft patterns, each one unique yet harmoniously aligned with the ship's motion. A few sailors lay awake just long enough to appreciate the comfort of being suspended above the wooden floor. The sensation of weightlessness, paired with the ship's steady rocking, eased them closer to rest. Their breathing slowed naturally, matching the rhythm of the hammock. This slow synchronization helped them let go of lingering thoughts from the day. Below deck, the air carried a mix of warmth from nearby bodies and a faint coolness drifting in from outside. This gentle contrast created an environment that felt comfortable for sleep, not too warm, not too cold. Sailors pulled their blankets up to their chests or tucked them beneath their arms, finding the balance that felt right for their resting bodies. Some sailors shifted onto their sides, letting the hammock curve around them like a soft embrace. The fabric cradled their shoulders and hips, providing support without pressure. Every adjustment brought a new wave of comfort, encouraging them to sink deeper into the night. Their muscles relaxed gradually, loosening as the hammock adjusted seamlessly to their posture. Occasionally, a faint creak echoed from the beams above, followed by the gentle tap of a rope brushing against wood. These familiar sounds blended into the atmosphere like soothing reminders of the ship's presence. Nothing felt abrupt or intrusive. The ship's voice was steady, calm, and reassuring, an anchor for tired minds drifting toward sleep. Some sailors rested with one arm draped over the edge of the hammock, lightly brushing the air as they breathed. Their fingers occasionally grazed the ropes that secured their beds, feeling the gentle vibration caused by the ship's movement. These small touches helped them feel connected to the vessel, grounding them in the peacefulness of the moment. Even those in wooden bunks felt the ship's subtle sway beneath them. The steady motion helped loosen tension in their backs, guiding their bodies into comfortable positions. The bunks offered more stillness than hammocks, but the ship's movement still reached them in gentle waves, helping them drift into a soft, restful state. At times, a sailor turned over, causing the hammock's ropes to twist slightly before relaxing again. This movement produced a quiet rustle, a sound that others had learned to associate with nighttime rest. These small noises brought familiarity, evidence that everyone around them was finding comfort in their own way. The lanterns continued to cast soft light, though some had dimmed slightly as the oil burned lower. The shadows along the walls grew longer, deepening into gentle gradients. This dimming light made the room feel even more tranquil. Sailors' faces softened, relaxed by the darkness settling in around them. Some sailors breathed in deeply, savoring the scent of wood, rope fiber, and the faint trace of cool sea air. These smells were part of their nightly world, simple, natural, and grounding. With every breath, they felt themselves slipping further from the demands of the day and closer to the ease of sleep. A few sailors murmured quietly in their dreams, though their voices were faint and brief. These soft sounds stirred the air for only a moment before dissolving back into the stillness. Dreamlike murmurs became part of the ship's nighttime language, joining the rhythm of hammocks and the whisper of waves. Those lying awake only a little longer found comfort in the sight of their crewmates resting peacefully. The shared stillness created a sense of unity. Each hammock rising and falling gently mirrored the calm breath of the sailors within them. This quiet harmony made the room feel like a single, peaceful entity carried by the sea. Gradually, even the faintest movement slowed. The sailors' bodies settled fully, their breaths deepened, and the hammock's gentle sway evened out. The room reached its calmer state, an environment where every sound was soft, every shadow mild, and every presence peaceful. As the night drifted toward its quietest hours, the sleeping quarters embraced an almost complete stillness. The ship moved steadily below them, cradling the sailors in its protective rhythm. The night, the sea, and the hammocks worked together to guide every weary body into rest. And in that deep, gentle calm, the crew slept soundly, carried through the darkness by the soft, unwavering motion of the ocean beneath them. As the ship drifted deeper into the calmest hours of the night, a few sailors quietly returned to the open deck for a final breath of fresh air. The world above had grown still, touched only by the soft glow of distant starlight. The cool night breeze moved gently across their faces, carrying with it a sense of peaceful solitude. In this quiet space, reflection came naturally, soft, unworried, and shaped by the vastness of the sky. The stars stretched across the horizon in countless points of calm light. With no city glow to obscure them, they appeared sharp and steady, shimmering above the dark ocean in a quiet, measured rhythm. Sailors often looked up at these skies as a way to settle their thoughts. The sight didn't demand awe or wonder. It simply offered perspective and tranquility in the stillness of the night. Standing near the railings, some sailors leaned forward slightly, watching the faint reflections of starlight ripple across the moving water. Every small crest and dip in the sea caught the light in different ways, creating a gentle shimmer that felt like distant twinkling brought down to the surface. This quiet dance between sky and ocean shaped a moment that invited deeper calmness. Others sat on low crates or coiled ropes, resting their elbows on their knees as they gazed upward. These moments weren't about searching for meaning. They were about settling into silence. The open sky, the rhythmic sea, and the steady hum of the ship created a layered peacefulness that allowed thoughts to drift effortlessly, like soft waves rolling across the mind. A soft breeze moved through the sails, creating a delicate flutter above. The sound blended gently into the atmosphere, adding texture to the night without disturbing the quiet. These subtle noises reminded sailors that the ship continued its slow, steady journey even as they paused to reflect. The steadiness brought comfort, a sense that life continued smoothly in the background. Some sailors closed their eyes for a moment, letting the sounds guide them. The ocean whispered against the hull. The lanterns clinked lightly in their frames. The wind carried a coolness that encouraged slow breathing. In these moments, reflection didn't require words. It unfolded naturally, shaped by the harmony of the ship and sea. A few sailors thought about the day that had passed, its challenges, its calm stretches, and the routines that guided them from morning to night. In the soft quiet of the deck, these memories felt less heavy. The night made everything gentler, as if smoothing the edges of their thoughts and easing any lingering tension from their minds. Others allowed their reflections to move toward home, not with longing or sadness, but with a quiet sense of connection. They pictured familiar faces, comforting routines, or landscapes they once walked on. The night sky became a bridge between where they stood and where their thoughts wandered, giving them space to feel grounded even across great distances. Some sailors simply appreciated the moment as it was: the fresh air, the gentle sway of the ship, and the silent companionship of the sky overhead. These simple observations often brought more peace than deep contemplation. Just being present in the quiet was enough to settle their minds and ease their breathing. The ship continued moving as they reflected, guided by soft winds and steady waves. The subtle motion beneath their feet reminded them that the night didn't stand still. It flowed forward gently, carrying them through time with a sense of effortless patience. This natural rhythm aligned with the slowing of their own thoughts. Occasionally, a faint splash sounded in the water below, caused by a wave folding into itself or a small creature moving near the surface. These small interruptions broke the silence without disturbing it, becoming part of the night's quiet language. Each sound grounded the sailors in their surroundings, drawing them gently back to the present moment. Some sailors pulled their jackets tighter or adjusted their scarves as the night grew cooler. These small gestures brought awareness to the physical comfort of the moment. The contrast between the crisp air and the warmth of their clothing made them more attuned to their bodies, helping them settle into a deeper sense of ease. The sky above remained clear, revealing countless points of quiet light. Sailors traced familiar patterns among the stars, recognizing shapes they had seen on many nights before. These constellations didn't guide their direction at this hour. They simply offered a familiar outline in the darkness, a steady presence when everything else seemed to slow. As the ship glided steadily through calm waters, the deck felt like a small sanctuary beneath the open sky. For the sailors who lingered there, the night offered a rare moment of personal quiet, an opportunity to breathe deeply, to reflect gently, and to let the vastness of the ocean soothe their thoughts. And when they finally turned away from the railings or rose from their resting spots, the stars continued shining above, steady and soft. The night held its peaceful stillness as the sailors made their way back below deck, carrying the calmness of the open sky into the resting hours ahead. As the night approached its deepest quiet, the sailors who remained on deck found that the world around them had softened into an almost dreamlike calm. The stars overhead shone with a steady glow, unobstructed by clouds, allowing the sky to stretch endlessly above the open sea. In this soft stillness, their thoughts grew quieter too, shaped by the gentle hush of the night. Some sailors lingered a moment longer near the railings, letting the cool air brush against their cheeks. The breeze carried faint scents of salt and distant waters, reminding them of the ocean's vastness without overwhelming the senses. This subtle reminder of the world beyond the ship grounded their reflections in a calm, steady awareness. Others watched the sails shifting gently overhead. The canvas swayed and breathed with the wind, creating a soft ripple through the rigging. This quiet movement reassured them that the ship continued its journey even as they rested. The sails needed no supervision in these calm hours. They simply responded to the wind with patient ease. A sailor sitting on a rope coil might tilt his head upward, following the slow drift of a cloud passing across the stars. The sight carried a peaceful simplicity. Nothing demanded urgency. The cloud moved at its own pace, just as the ship moved with the currents, and just as thoughts drifted lightly through the sailor's mind. Another sailor traced the horizon with his eyes, noting the faint line where sky met water. At night, this line softened into a blurred transition, making it difficult to tell where one ended and the other began. This gentle uncertainty added to the night's calming atmosphere, reminding them that not everything needed clear definition to be peaceful. Some sailors reflected on the harmony of the entire scene: the sky above, the sea below, the quiet ship between them. They didn't try to interpret the moment, they simply acknowledged it. The balance between movement and stillness, sound and silence, made the night feel whole. In this harmony, their tired thoughts found rest. Others let their reflections wander towards simple hopes for the coming day. They imagined calm winds, steady progress, and another peaceful night to follow. These thoughts weren't expectations, just soft wishes carried lightly through the quiet. The night seemed to accept these hopes gently, letting them hang in the still air without pressure. A few sailors stepped closer to the mast, leaning against the smooth wood as they closed their eyes briefly. The vibrations within the mast offered a subtle reminder of the ship's life. Feeling these quiet tremors helped them stay connected to the vessel, grounding them in the familiar rhythm of the voyage. The quiet conversations from earlier hours had faded completely now, replaced by the ship's natural soundtrack. Each creak, each whisper of wind, each brush of water contributed to the peaceful environment. The sailors embraced the silence as if it were an old companion, steady and comforting after a long day. Some took one last look upward before heading below deck, letting the starlight rest gently on their faces. In that final moment of stillness, they allowed whatever reflections remained to settle calmly within their hearts. There was no need for resolution. The night didn't require them to solve anything. It simply offered space to breathe. As they walked away from the open sky, the cool deck beneath their feet felt reassuring. The path back to the lower quarters glowed softly with lantern light. The gentle warmth of those lights signaled that rest awaited them, a seamless transition from the vastness of the sky to the comfort of the ship's interior. The final sailors stepped quietly into the dim corridors, listening as the sounds of the sea faded slightly behind them. Each step guided them toward rest, toward hammocks swaying softly, toward blankets warmed by shared air, toward dreams shaped by the calm rhythms of the voyage. Their minds felt lighter, softened by the night's embrace. And as the deck became empty, the ship continued forward beneath the starlit sky, carrying within it the last reflections of the sailors who had stood there. The night remained peaceful, the sea remained gentle, and the sky stretched onward, steady, quiet, and comforting. In the lingering hush of this final moment, let the calm of their journey settle gently around you. May the softness of the sea, the quiet of the night, and the slow rhythm of the ship help you drift into rest. Thank you for listening to this story tonight. May peace and ease be with you as you settle into your own quiet journey toward sleep.